Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about a technique I call thinking what if in detail. This is primarily for setting designers out there because remember I said the order I like design to go in is setting, followed by story, followed by system mechanics. And this is a technique that I use to come up with new settings. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But what I want to start with is this came because I was looking at my notes, like I'm always doing, and there was a note about a lunch meeting at Troika. It wasn't an official meeting. It was a bunch of us were sitting around. I think it was during Temple. A bunch of us were sitting around eating lunch, and someone had brought up trying to guess what people from a century ago would be amazed at. And things were coming up like, cars, although cars have been around kind of for at least a century now. But more things like all the appliances we have, washers, dryers, refrigerators, the fact that we can have ice whenever we want, the fact that travel is a lot easier and more common. So we were talking about all these things. And then I flipped it around and said, what would people a century from now be grossed out, be shocked at how we live now? And people were throwing out things like, you know, what kind of jobs we had or that we worked 40 hours a week or things. And I said, I think they're going to be grossed out that we re-wore clothes. And so he went, well, we can wash them. And I'm like, that's not what I mean. This is my what if scenario. Because this is back in the early 2000s. And the idea of 3D printers, we're still kind of like, we're figuring that out. And I said, what if generic like replicators from Star Trek are never possible? But one thing that is possible are clothing printers. And I said, and here's how I imagine they'd work. You have this machine in your house. It's probably small, maybe it's built into the wall. It's got a little screen on it. It has tons of selections for fabric types, for patterns, for colors, for styles. And these are just all options you pick. It also has your exact measurements. Maybe you entered it, or maybe you just stand in front of it, maybe naked, and it scans you. So it knows exactly what your measurements are. So it doesn't matter if you gain weight or go to the gym and change your body shape. It always knows exactly how to make clothes that fit you. And I imagined it would work like this. You wake up in the morning and you decide, this is what I want to wear today. Boop, 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 print. Now, maybe it's not instant. Maybe it takes 5 or 10 minutes. So you have a cup of coffee or you take a shower. But when you're done, there are fresh, clean, wrinkle-free clothes that fit you perfectly. Now, again, and then I started running with this and thinking, what were all the things that this might run to? First of all, stores. I don't know if stores would still exist, but if they did, there may be industrial ones that could print in seconds. So don't think that this few minutes to get clothes is a restriction. It may just be that's how home ones work. Also, you don't need an iron because your clothes are always freshly made, but you also don't need washers or dryers because every night you just take your clothes, throw it in some hamper, and that hamper recycles the material and flushes away any dirt that you accumulated. Now, let's talk about all the effects this would have. What would society be like with just this one change? Imagine nothing else. Clothes printers are common. Well, first of all, the personal effects on you would be amazing. You would never have to wear the same clothes twice. And once you wore something and somebody said, hey, you look really good in that style, that pattern, that color, you have infinite variations. You don't have to keep wearing that same yellow flower shirt, but you can have tons of yellow flower shirts that you can wear all the time. It also means you're never going to run into somebody wearing the exact same thing. You're not going to be walking down the street and going, oh shoot, that person has the exact same clothes, because the number of options available are just going to be huge. The chance of somebody picking the exact same color and pattern and style and fabric is just probably going to be minute. Your clothes will always fit you flawlessly. If you've ever had clothes tailored and you know how nicely they fit you, all your clothes will fit that way. Especially if you're one of these people, and I've been that person multiple times in my life, where I'm in between two off-the-rack sizes. So for a while, I was between large and XL. So I had to buy XL. If it was long sleeve, I had to buy XL to get the sleeve length. But then it'd be really baggy on me. Then I'm going to a little whoop, and XL fit perfectly. Now I'm moving back towards large, especially on a short sleeve shirt. Maybe I should just buy a large and not an extra large. Baggy would mean if you're wearing baggy clothes, that's because you picked it as a style. You wanted a baggy shirt. You're not forced to wear a baggy shirt just because you buy clothes off the rack and it's made for like 3 or 4 different generic body shapes. Clothing repair would probably be unheard of. Needle, thread, sewing machines. Nobody has those anymore. Now, think about your house and think of the architecture and appliances that now you no longer need. Your house probably has closets, chest of drawers, armoires, furniture that is just designed to organize and store clothing. Your washer and dryer, gone. There may be a specific room in your house with special hookups for washer and dryer, gone. Or you may live in an apartment building and there's a special room in that apartment building that holds washers and dryers. And you have to wait in line and wait for your clothes to be done and assign a special night of the week or every 2 weeks where you're just doing laundry. That's all gone. Future people don't understand that. And when they hear about it, they're like, it's like you thinking 100 years ago people didn't used to brush their teeth. Ugh. Now, it's interesting that you can extend this to think that would there be clothing stores? Because I mentioned earlier, maybe there'd be industrial printers that would give you clothes in seconds rather than minutes. They might be gone, or there might be boutiques that sell patterns that you can't purchase online. So you go in and you purchase one day, because remember, this clothing is disposable, and also you don't really have a way of cleaning it, nor would you want to. In the future, person would be grossed out by wearing the same shirt or even underwear twice. Bleh. So you go into the store, you buy a one-use same-day shirt. Maybe it's a special pattern. Maybe you need a tuxedo and you haven't bought a tuxedo pattern for your home printer, or maybe it's too complicated for your home printer. So you're going to a wedding, you go buy a tuxedo at a store for a wedding. Or maybe it's for one-use things, like you went to work in the morning and it was nice and sunny, and when you leave at night, it's raining. You duck into a little store, print a raincoat, wear it home, throw it into your hamper when you get home. This also made me wonder, there might still be vintage clothing stores out there, but they're probably for the wealthy, because old style clothes is probably rare, so it's expensive, but owning it means you now have to have a way of washing it, of repairing it, and probably only the wealthy could have that. But there's even more. I mean, I haven't even touched the iceberg of what society would be like with clothing printers. Think about traveling. Think about when you see people at airports or train stations and they have luggage. That's because that luggage is full of clothing. You don't need that. Most of the places you stay, most of the hotels would probably have in the hotel room a clothing printer. Or if not, all those one-off stores exist where you could just go the night before and print out what clothes you want to wear the next day and throw them on a chair in your hotel room, and it's waiting for you there in the morning. So traveling would be wildly different. You wouldn't see people lugging stuff around. Traveling would be even more easy than it is now. And without luggage, there's no check-in, there's no overhead bins, there's no wheelie carts. It's all gone. These people would probably look back on us as incredibly primitive people, thinking of all the things our society to do, architecture, furniture, just to have clothing, which they think of as, this is just something that is created on the fly for me. Now, it's trivial to extend this idea to other things. Food is the obvious one. If there were food printers, you wouldn't need a kitchen, a pantry, all those big appliances, ovens, refrigerators, Instant Pot. You don't need them anymore. You can print out whatever you want, whenever you want. And you may not even need, you wouldn't need pots and pans anymore because you don't have anything to use them in. Tupperware, all that stuff would be gone. But maybe you don't even need plates and cutlery. Maybe the food printer can print out something for the food to be on. Even if, like, it's an inedible food substrate. Like, maybe it's just a bamboo plate and a bamboo fork. And then it's organic like the food, but not, you don't think of eating it. And then the whole thing just goes back. When you're done, the whole thing goes back into the food printer hamper and gets recycled. I don't want to think about other things that might get recycled into food. So let's move on. Would grocery stores still exist? Maybe. Maybe it's this farmer's market. Maybe it's local produce for foodies who are like, I'd rather have a real apple than a printed apple. Would restaurants exist? Same thing. Maybe restaurants would have, like the one-off stores, maybe there are recipes that aren't public. So if you want a particular, lasagna, you have to go to this one Italian restaurant because they don't sell their recipe. Or maybe it's stuff that food printers don't work well on. Maybe like fish in general doesn't work well from a food printer. So there's a lot of sushi bars still around because, especially raw fish, you can tell a printed raw fish. So people just go to sushi bars if they want raw fish. So you can see you can take a lot of things and run with this. So designers, and particularly setting designers, this is when you should play what if with every game that you make. Think of a setting, think of a common setting, and then change one thing, just one thing in it, and think of all the ramifications that one change would have. Just making up clothing printers or food printers got rid of rooms in your house, got rid of furniture, got rid of appliances, got rid of time people had to spend involved in all those things. Arcanum was such a game where we said, what if we took a standard Tolkien-esque fantasy world and said, what if an industrial revolution happened? What would change? And that's when we started thinking of all these things, not just, tech versus magic and what the pros and cons of those would be, but what all the different fantasy races would be involved in an industrial revolution, what the effect of the industrial revolution would be on their lives. So that was a fun thing to do. And that's a good technique for making a setting, because I just want you to realize when you're trying to come up with a new setting, if you try to make everything new and everything strange, then players don't have a touchstone. They don't recognize it. I think it's a lot more fun when you want to come up with a setting is you think of something that your players can easily imagine and change something. Maybe it's near future and we just discovered warp drive. Maybe it's near future and aliens arrive. Maybe it's near future and we just discovered a way of copying brains into other brains. So now wealthy people live forever by buying young people, wiping their brain and copying their brain into it. Crazy. This is all setting. And this is where I think is the first point you take in the journey to making a good game. So you may want to try this technique. It's worked really well for me.